For the following presentation, we have asked the question, how can the next generation of Australian youths innovate and improve integration of refugee students? We have chosen this question due to the high number of refugees across the nation and in Melbourne, as according to Settlement Services International, Australia has accepted 17,555 refugees in total between 2015 to 2016. And according to ABS, 28.5% of Australia's population are immigrants, with 1.2 million residing in Melbourne in 2011. We are focusing on Australian youth because children are easier to communicate to and don't have biases and prejudices like adults and young adults would, and are a lot more open to what is being said. We feel that if the youth of Australia were to improve the view they have towards refugees in this day and age, and were to learn more about their cultures, it will help refugee students not only integrate into the country better, but it will also bring in a more friendly culture into Australia, as children will meet and learn more of each other's cultures and ways in schools, which could lead to parents getting to know one another, which ultimately leads to a closer community throughout the state, and hopefully in time throughout the country.
I will be talking about the global nature of asylum seekers. This includes the push and pull factors of movement and how asylum seekers impact the country they flee to, with reference to the Syrian civil war and Syrian asylum seekers. Push factors are things that push people to leave an area. These include social, economic, and political factors. Similarly, pull factors are things that pull people to come to a new area. These also include social, economic, and political factors. Asylum seekers and refugees impact a country's resources. Housing, feeding, and medical care for refugees can be expensive. They also impact public attitudes. For example, in Australia, some people view asylum seekers negatively as boat people or queue jumpers. Lastly, asylum seekers and refugees impact domestic politics. They pull into question a country's sovereignty and its safety. Syria has been under the dictatorship of Bashar al-Assad since 2000 when he was elected president. In 2011, off the back of the Arab Springs movement in Tunisia, anti-government protests erupted in Syria, calling for democratic reforms, the release of political prisoners, increase in freedoms, and the end of corruption in government. On several occasions, these protests were suppressed with military force, and in response, the Free Syrian Army was formed. In 2011, the United Nations declared Syria to be in a state of civil war. According to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, 4.8 million Syrian refugees have been internationally displaced since the start of the war. Similarly, the UNHCR estimated that it would cost in excess of $2.5 billion to sustain the 4 million Syrian refugees that were displaced in neighboring countries in 2015.
Throughout globalization, the issue of integration initiatives for young refugees is a key topic. Thus, it is important to acknowledge why and how we as a community can ease the process and gain greater awareness. A key aspect that is seen throughout such circumstances is cross-cultural clash. The culture an individual holds can, and in most cases will, interfere with their ability to conform to social structures and consequently their ability to integrate into Australian society. This is enhanced by the locals of which they are surrounded by and forced to live near. Example of this is the 2005 Cronulla riots, where hundreds of drunk locals protested and harassed a local Lebanese and Muslim community. Despite these unfortunate and brutal circumstances, these protests represent what is explicitly prominent in many lives and experiences of young refugees, and continues to remain today. Similarly, another issue that relates to the global nature of integration are the barriers to engagement for young refugees. For many of these young refugees, English is not the primary language. This puts a significant hindrance on the shoulders of that individual because in a country like Australia, in order to be socially powerful or just even have a voice, you are required to be literate and educated the traditional Australian way. Additionally, the idea of educational provision for refugee children is often secondary to the social image of the institution which teaches them, meaning that the idea of being labelled socially responsible often holds more leverage than actually caring for the well-being and livelihood of the young immigrants.
Our team has chosen to focus on the Yarra City Council area with a specific focus on Fitzroy. In this council region, there's a large number of overseas-born individuals. 25,127 were recorded in 2016 from Australian Bureau of Statistics, and in Fitzroy, 29% of its residents in 2016 were born overseas. In the final submission, I'll expand on these statistics. In 2002, the Yarra City Council region became a refugee welcome zone. This area has a vast understanding of its diversity and has put together a multicultural partnership plan to encourage an inclusive and respectful multicultural community. This plan entails 4 priority areas to direct and inform council policy. The council also recognises and participates in Refugee Week, which I'll expand on in the final submission.
As the population ages, the positive effects of refugees grow as they become economic assets. Initially, as put by Hugo in 2011, the first generation immigrants tended to have skills belying the stereotypes of the group. It's overwhelmingly low skilled, meaning they held jobs which showed no correlation to their skill set. However, this mismatch between skills and occupations is reduced significantly in the next generation. Moving forward, as put by Hugo, Australia's economy is one in which shows upward cross-generational mobility when it comes to immigrant youth, meaning that although the parents or surrounding family of this young refugee may find it difficult to have equal opportunity, for the younger generation, the opportunity to improve upon living and well-being conditions for themselves in the scope of the previous generation provides incentive for things such as higher education and work to be valued. This has proved to narrow the skill and occupation gap significantly in recent years and continue to in the future.
We have chosen Fitzroy High to base our proposed solution on. This is because of its diversity within the student body, its exposure to multicultural communities such as refugee and asylum seeker communities, and its previous contribution to outreach community programs to demonstrate its willingness to integrate and educate its students on the acceptance of multicultural communities. All of these points will be expanded upon in the final submission.
I will be outlining the proposed solution for our team's question. This includes the request for approval from necessary authority figures and community members, a brief plan of the program, and the involvement of local council and local volunteer organisations. In order to introduce this program into Fitzroy High School, we will need the approval from the principal and the Department of Education. We need to contact local organisations that have volunteer programs and ask them to be involved, and we will contact the Yarra City Council. We will ask members within the refugee community in Fitzroy if they would like to be involved, especially the parents that have children attending Fitzroy High. With the support of local community, we will plan a program that includes approximately 4 different cultural groups. The students will learn about these 4 groups over the 12 weeks. Here is a draft outlining the 12-week program. Each week will consist of an hour-and-a-half long periods, including 4 workshops, 4 volunteer sessions, and 4 cultural experience days. These will be on rotation throughout the 12 weeks. This slide shows the contact points which we will send emails to. These emails will include a statement of our vision, the brief outline of the program, and what we hope to achieve by implementing this at Fitzroy High.
The question we are asking and ultimately trying to solve is, how can the next generation of Australians innovate and improve upon local integration methods? The proposed solution to this issue is to implement a cultural awareness program within a high school. This will help address the issue through forms of community engagement. The program will ultimately help to create friendships among students, with the ultimate goal for those students involved in the program to be introduced to families to become friends with immigrant families, and therefore local integration methods are improved. The proposed solution helps raise vital awareness for all ethnic and cultural groups, also raising awareness for students who may not previously have known significant amounts of information on cultures and ethnic groups, known about immigration and asylum and why it is important to socially include such groups, and how it can raise awareness to break down stereotypes. It will help to cement a sense of belonging amongst the immigrant youth population, helping them create a sense of acceptance, camaraderie, unity, and security. It helps to elaborate on the idea that cultural and ethnic groups are accepted by communities.